This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
It feels like you can get your credit scores anywhere these days. Random websites, card statements, budgeting apps, heck, even your dog might bark out a few numbers. It's true. Credit Karma isn't the only place you can find them. But we actually do more with your scores to help you find your next financial opportunity. Like a more rewarding credit card, a game plan that helps you pay down debt faster, or a personal loan to help you save more on interest payments each month. Cha-ching! The possibilities are kinda endless. Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
We're back for another week of our D3 Coach and Coordinators of the Week presented by Hanson Ratings. This is our Week 6 edition, and it's been an incredible season so far. Some surprises, some things we expected, but D3 football, we're excited to honor the coaches that we have here this week, and joining me as each week is the creator of Hanson Ratings, Logan Hanson. Logan, as I said, another great week of football here.
Yeah, it was a great week of football in Division III. Had some upsets. We had some big-time conference matchups starting to take shape. So,
yeah, definitely. We see some of those teams we've featured here in the past. You know, when you look at them, they had a great week. They won a big game. And we see some of those teams continuing to win, continuing that trend, and maybe bucking some of the expectations that they had for some of the usual suspects in Division III.
Yeah, for sure. Like last week, we honored UW-Platteville for their offensive staff, and then they came out and played UW-River Falls, who we've also honored their staff. And UW-Platteville put forth one of the best defensive performances of the year. So that was pretty cool to see from them. But yeah, it's a lot of the same teams improving week after week and doing well. So it's great to see some of these coaches continue to have success.
Yeah, another great group of coaches we're going to talk about here this week and talk to this week. And we're going to start with our D3 Offensive Coordinator of the Week. Who do you have for us, Logan?
This week we have Shawn Glosek of Washington and Jefferson, who won 73-21 against Geneva. W&J last week had basically a perfect offensive game. They scored a touchdown on their first 9 possessions. They never punted. They never turned the ball over. They never failed a fourth down conversion. The only possession they didn't score on was one play possession at the end of the game as time ran out, and they ran the ball for 11 yards on that one. So when you go the entire game and you score every single time you touch the ball, you're going to have a pretty good day. So 73 total points, 27 first downs, 13 each rushing and passing. They had over 10 yards per play, 565 total yards, and then they spread the ball around. Obviously, when you win 73-21, you're going to get a lot of guys in, but they had 9 different players who rushed the ball, and they had 9 different players who caught the ball. So a great showing from them, and they've got a big game coming up again next week against Grove City, the defending conference champs in their conference. But if their offense can play like they did last week, I expect good things to happen for them.
Yeah, numbers that an offensive coordinator dreams about. Let's talk to our offensive coordinator of the week, Shawn Glosek, on some of the things that they do there at Washington and Jefferson. Joining me now on the podcast is our D3 offensive coordinator of the week, Shawn Glosek from Washington and Jefferson. Shawn, congratulations on being our D3 offensive coordinator of the week, and thank you for taking the time to join us.
No problem, Keith. Thank you for the recognition. And I just want to make it very clear that this is a team recognition from the entire offensive staff, Coach Sirianni, obviously, and the rest of the offensive staff. We've worked incredibly hard all week, as we always do. And then the players went out and did their thing like they do every Saturday. And I'm very, very proud of the group that we have collectively offensively. So I just want to make that very clear. This is a great team award.
Absolutely. It's always great when those things come together. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that you pay attention to and that work for you. And we're going to start with efficiency. Obviously is the big thing on offense. We want to be efficient in the way that we do things, in the way that we move the chains, and the plays that we run. And we'd love to hear your philosophy and how you guys think about that.
Yeah, so we at W&J take a lot of pride in being efficient on offense. And what I mean when I say that is, we scale it. So, for instance, on first down, we are looking to get 4 or more yards on first down. That is step 1. Step 2, whatever the D&D might be, on second down is cut it in half. So, for instance, if we have a 2nd and 8 and we gain 4 yards, then we would consider that an efficient play. And then on 3rd and 4th down, that's all conversion. It was not an efficient play. It's 3rd and 3 and we get 2 yards, right? If it's 3rd and 3 and we get 5 yards, then we would consider that an efficient play. So that is one of the things that we take a lot of pride in. We pay a lot of attention to it throughout the week. And we make sure when we go through our openers, we make sure, all right, 1st and 10, this is what we want to do. This can be an efficient play, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's easy to track those things on the backside and decide whether we were efficient or not and give the team the report and look at the report yourself. I think doing it real time is important as well. So for you, what's the process on game day that, as you said, you're going through your openers or in any particular drive in a game that you're keyed into, hey, that wasn't efficient on that down. Why? What's the adjustment?
Yeah, so, I mean, one of the things that we like to look at is how can we take advantage of where the numbers are. So, for instance, like if you don't overplay the boundary or if there's a way that we can create numbers into the boundary, we deem that very easy to just steal some yards and get moving and get the sticks moving. So the first thing we try and look at is, all right, if they are not overplaying the boundary, what can we do to attack that specific area? Or even if it's to the field, but mainly into the boundary because it's just shorter and it's quicker and it happens faster. But mainly, if we can gain numbers into the boundary, that's how we're going to start.
So talking about the boundary, I know one of the things you guys like to do, and I'm sure it helps you be efficient, is the boundary passing game. I love boundary passing game. We've always had plenty of concepts that attack the boundary. I think, for one, just defensive structures lend themselves sometimes to attacking that way. And also, when you think about distance of throws and angles, it's very quarterback friendly.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. One of the things that we do look at is either boundary RPOs or boundary, just quick game passing in general. We do run a ton of RPOs into the boundary, whether it's glances, whether it's tight end in the flat, whatever the case may be. Then there's other ways to manipulate it as well, like formation into the boundary. And if you don't over adjust into the boundary, then we're just going to hit you on it all day. But one of the things that I like to do is get the back involved into the boundary or get the tight end involved into the boundary as well, and just kind of really work that side, work easy throws, get the run game going, the run scheme going back to the field, and then the RPO into the boundary, whether it's hitches, whether it's flat routes, whether it's some type of quick curl flat concept or whatever the case may be. That's one of the things that we like to look at and how we can manipulate, I guess would be the appropriate term, manipulate the defense to do what exactly we want to do.
Definitely. I think when you look at the boundary too, and shoot, a lot of the concepts that are out there, flooding the boundary becomes advantageous as well. A lot of people don't want to give up that space on the field and will defend it accordingly, and that opens some opportunities into the boundary for floods. Especially, I told you one of my favorites was to do a counter action away from it and then flood back into the boundary. There was always somebody there. It's very difficult to cover.
Yeah. One of my personal favorites from a drop back perspective is going FIB into the boundary, FIB, and going 4 verts. Because the way people trade off number 3 and how they handle number 3 are a little bit different. Everybody's a little bit different in what they do. But 4 verts from the boundary, and also if you got a quarterback that can do it, you also typically might have the one-on-one back to the field as well for either a comeback route, an in-breaker, or whatever, or just a fade ball, whatever the case may be. So there's a lot of different things, but one of my favorites is just going 4 verts from the boundary. A lot of the times when they want to try and cover up number 3, whether they're carrying or whether it's the safety coming over the top, we do a really good job with that number 2 sitting in that little seam window right there. And then we can just bang that according. And it's really quick for the quarterback too. It happens so fast. Like the defense really has a tough time being able to react to it simply because of the speed, because we're closing the space.
Yeah, it does happen quicker. I know in a particular season we used that quite a bit. And remember exactly what you said, that the window you were throwing it in hit a little bit faster, but also the spacing with landmarks. And we were definitely landmark based, very disciplined about hitting our landmarks, but we did make some adjustments, mostly because it was going to hit quicker. Is there anything you guys do to adjust or think differently about the landmarks and how you hit them?
Yeah, so one of the things that we talk about is like we use landmarks too, for sure. And when we're F5B, you still need the number 1 receiver to have room to run his route. You still need the number 2 receiver to run his route. If we're just going 4 verts from the boundary and 3x1, what we'll do is we'll just have number 1 line up just outside the numbers, and then number 2 will line up about, I'd say, 2 yards inside of the numbers, and then we'll put a tight end, and he'll be our number 3. Is also doing 4 verts out of 11 personnel at FIB is really, really good, because now we can shoot him vertical, but also we can just send him right to the flat. We can work some curl flat game over there, or we can keep the tight end in protection and we can release the back and get other people going that way as well. So there's a number of different things you could do to take advantage of that. But that's one of the we specifically look at.
Yeah, definitely. I know we spent a lot of time and we really trained our receiver, that number 2 receiver, on how he would release that defender, how he was going to, depending on what that guy did, either break over the top of him or rip underneath of him to get into that window. What's the coaching points you feel are most effective in making sure that guy just doesn't get stonewalled on his way there, but also doesn't get knocked off of that landmark? Because I see a lot of young receivers in trying to get to their landmark deviate quite a bit and never get there. As we said, this is going to hit a little bit quicker because it's going to the boundary.
Right. Right. One of the things that we teach the number 2 receiver is easiest second level release. Okay. So if he wants to play heavy outside leverage, right, then we're just going to run right through that inside shoulder and then work off of that safety and get our head around. If he's heavy inside leverage, he's probably doing us a favor because we can protect number 1 a little bit better, but we just light outside release it, attack the outside shoulder, right? Get the overhang defender or whoever is on top of number 2 to flip his hips. And then as soon as he clears, number 2 receiver clears, he gets his head around and bang, there's the ball.
And the last one, I think, to address and just make mention of some of the coaching points for him, obviously, is the quarterback. Again, different kind of spacing, different alignment to start, a little bit different where the windows are going to hit. What are the coaching points you have for him to be good on this particular version of 4 verts?
What we do is everything is on rhythm, right? So we don't necessarily have to hitch through the 4 verts from the boundary. He could hit his 3rd step, and by the time he hits his 3rd step coming from the boundary, he should be able to see all right, well, number 2 just cleared that guy, and he's going to just bend it right in front of that safety, and boom, there goes the ball. So that would be number 1. Number 2, he still has to get through his progression, though. The progression does not change. We're just going to work number 1 into the boundary, and then we're going to go to number 2, and then we're going to go to the over route. With that being said, if it's matchup based, okay, and this would be more of a game plan type of thing throughout the week, but if we line up in 3x1 FIB and we like the matchup going over to the field, 1-on-1, whatever the case may be, we give the quarterback let's call it a menu of different types of routes that would be good versus that type of leverage and that look. So it could be true 4 verts. It could be 3 verts with a backside post. It could be 3 verts with a backside comeback. If your quarterback is good enough to throw the field comeback, I think you should throw it every freaking time, in my opinion. But those are some of the things that we talk to our quarterback about.
Coach, I appreciate you taking some time, sharing your thoughts here on efficiency. I love the attack into the boundary was something always part of our game plan. So I love reliving a little bit of that and hearing your coaching points as well. And congratulations to you and your staff, and best of luck to the presidents the rest of the way here in 2024.
Thank you, Keith. I really appreciate it. It was a good time talking to you guys.
With Uber Reserve, good things come to those who plan ahead. Family vacay? Reserve your ride as soon as you book your flights. To all the planners, now you can reserve your Uber ride up to 90 days in advance. See Uber app for details.
All right, Logan, it takes us to our defensive coordinator of the week. Who earned that honor this week?
This week, that honor goes to Brady Grayvold of UW-Eau Claire, who won 41-0 against UW-Stevens Point. It's usually a pretty good day for a defense when your defense outscores the opposing offense, which is what Eau Claire did on Saturday. They returned an interception for a touchdown, and they put a 0 up on the scoreboard. And we've talked in the last couple of weeks about some staffs who excelled in havoc rate. Well, this week wasn't a very havoc-filled day for the UW-Eau Claire defense. All they did was just prevent Stevens Point from getting anything going offensively. They allowed less than 150 yards on 2.8 yards per play. They did force 3 turnovers, but, I mean, here's the stat of the week was they only allowed 2 plays of double-digit yards. And when you've got 22 different players registering a tackle as well, only 1 first down allowed in the second half, that, like we talked about with Washington and Jefferson offensively, this is basically the dream scenario for a defensive coordinator, what you want to see from your team. Just go out, execute, and everybody doing their job every single play, and seeing a lot of plays made by a lot of different guys.
Yeah, I mentioned to you that I got to know Brady years back, was getting his feet wet in college football and was doing some writing for us at USA Football. So it's been fun to watch his progression as a coach, definitely a coach on the rise. And let's talk to him as our D3 Defensive Coordinator of the Week. Joining me now is Defensive Coordinator of the Week at University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, Brady Grayvold. Brady, it's great to have you here on the podcast. I've known you for a while. I think you did some writing for us when I was at USA Football and got to know you then. So it's been fun to watch you move around the country a little bit, grow in this profession. And I certainly am excited to be able to recognize you as our D3 Defensive Coordinator of the Week.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. It was an awesome week. Our kids played lights out. They did a really good job. Our staff did an awesome job. Starting right from the top, Coach Erickson, Rob Erickson does a phenomenal job and helps us out tremendously week to week. I mean, he's got awesome perspective being a coordinator and coaching at some of the highest levels. And then our defensive staff, Ricky Lang, our defensive line coach, Tim Hoover, our linebackers coach, and then our 2 student assistants, Tyson Wink and AJ Colvin. I mean, we just had a really good week. It was an awesome bounce back week after taking one on the chin earlier. That's the type of football we expect here at Wisconsin-Eau Claire.
So Brady, we're going to get into a little bit of some of the things you do and how you approach this. And for you, like a lot of people, this starts with making sure that you guys are putting your players in a position to succeed. And for you, you look at this as something that you have to trust your players. And mentioning this to me before we got going, that it is really necessary for you because you're playing a lot of young guys right now.
Yeah, for us, we're kind of in a unique situation of taking over a program that's in the middle of a rebuild. So through one recruiting class, we got a lot of kids in that class we think can play high-level football, but they're still 18 years old. So for us and their development and pairing it up with some older guys that have played football, and they played a lot of football, but have only been in our system now for this is their 4th install overall after 2 spring balls and this being the 2nd season. For us, it's big on building trust with those guys and making them feel comfortable in the calls, but also, having that 2-way conversation of what calls do they like and why. Are they feeling good in our pressure systems? Are they feeling good in our zone coverages? Are they feeling good playing cover 4? And I think that's been important for us, and not only our development but the development of all those guys is finding out what we're good at. And that's taken 5 games through the season. We're starting to figure some things out on that end and what we're better at and what we're maybe not as good as. But I think for us, that's played a big part in building that trust and really trusting our kids and being able to give us good feedback.
Yeah, I really believe that is an important thing. And just going back to my days of coaching quarterbacks, I always wanted to know what are the things you feel best about. We go through film and we watch film and we have all of our data and our stats on what we think is working really well. But ultimately, it does boil down to how do those guys feel about it, right? And making sure that those things match. And that is a little bit of a process. You could do that informally, but I think it's really about matching up. What are the tendencies? What are our strengths? What is the data showing we're good at? And then blending that with the feedback you're getting from the players. How do you go about that over the course of a week?
Yeah, I think it really starts for us on Sundays. Tyson and AJ, who again are 2 student coaches, do a great job of different things that we're asking them to do, whether it be heat maps, whether it be our tendency report, whether it be wide receiver reports. They do a really nice job of getting into the nitty gritty and getting into the deep stuff. So Tim, Rick, and I take that big overview and like, all right, how have we called games so far? What are we good at on first down? What are we good at on second down? What are we good at on third down? And then finding, okay, we're really good at this on first down, but we've only called this 5% of our calls. Like, we need to call these types of calls more, whether it be a blitz, whether it be a certain coverage, whether it be a different pressure, like pressure package. I mean, there's just a bunch of different ideas that get thrown around on Sunday that once you start narrowing your plan down on Monday, Tuesday, I think for us, that's been the biggest advantage of being able to look big picture and letting the young guys dive in on the details is like, who have we been over the past few weeks? How has this team handled other teams that maybe like us? What teams have they played that have been different than us, but have had success doing something similar to what we're doing defensively? So I think for us, it's just been that big picture and just looking and then being able, again, to set the kids up and say, okay, our kids are really good at this. How can we give a different disguise, or how can we give a different presentation, but still run with the same as, right? So I think that's been important of not necessarily installing new schemes and new ideas every week, but just building on what we already have and just fine tuning it.
For that part of really figuring out what the kids understand best, you mentioned making sure they're comfortable before we got going, right? That you're making calls that they're comfortable with. How do you make sure those things are aligning? Because, yeah, all that work your guys do to you guys looking at the big picture, those other guys being able to zoom in on the details and bringing that together. Obviously, you're going to put that game plan together. You're going to hit the week. Now, where does the feedback come from the players to help tweak that and help you come up with the final game plan and call sheet?
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of little conversations. And I think our coaching staff does a really nice job of not only getting to know our kids we know our kids at a really deep level, but we also know strengths and weaknesses as players. Sometimes you get a group on the field that might not be naturally aggressive. They're a little bit more passive. So you got to kick the mule a little bit and blitz them, right? Sometimes you got to be a little bit more aggressive. Sometimes you get a group on the field that's maybe better in man coverage. So play more man. Like, it sounds really simplistic, but I think a lot of people, myself included, have gotten in that trap of, okay, here are the things I'm comfortable with, and I'm going to call it around my comfort level, getting to the kids and finding out what types of kids. Like, you might not have a group that's great at reading and reacting, so force it, right? So I think that's for us, it's just that understanding of what is an offense giving us, what problems are they going to present, what's our best plan of attack to stop that, right? And I think the kids, like I said, they get plenty of input, and our coaches do a nice job of presenting plans to them and finding out what we think we can execute, what they feel good about, what we feel good about. And I think last week that kind of all came to fruition of the plans all matched up. The kids felt great about the plan and they executed it.
When you look back over the course of the week and look at how much you've prepared versus how much you've called, how do you deal with, I guess, that overage, right? We talk about that on the offensive side of the ball all the time. You have to prepare things. You have to have answers. But you also want to find that sweet spot of efficiency too, where I'm getting good reps during the week and making sure that the most of those are focused on things we feel that we're going to use and that we're going to, need as answers over the course of the week. For you, how do you deal with that? What's your process in making sure that you're getting close to that sweet spot of just the right amount of calls versus not too much or not having enough for the answers that you need?
Yeah, I think something that Coach Erickson brought, and I don't know if it's necessarily a new idea, but it's just hyper-focus us into what we're doing. Like, how many plays are you actually going to see of that situation, right? So I think what you're alluding to is, like, how do you avoid chasing the ghosts of, well, what if they do this? What if they do that? I think realistically, like in a game, like how many base first and second non-circumstantial downs are you going to see? Like on average in college football, it's between 38 and 40 right now, right? So between 38 and 40, like how many different things can an offense present to you in 40 plays, right? I think that's for us. Like you want to chase these, but then you get to the end of your Sunday game plan, like, all right, we've got 11 ideas. Are we really going to call all of these things 3 times and then say, well, that's great? Or do you want to get good at something over the week and call it 7, 8, 9 times? And there's your 4 to 5 calls that you feel really good about, that are sound, that you have answers to. So I think it's kind of that sweet spot, right? Of like, are you breaking down like how many plays are you going to see from each team on average? What do they do, right? And I think for us, the other part of that is, okay, you go in with a plan, but maybe you find of these 7 calls, like there are 2 that you've been playing a lot over the first 3 or 4 drives that they don't have an answer to. I think people get away from it, specifically when you're calling either offense or defense. Like when something is working, why go away from it? I think everyone's like, well, let's get to the next thing. Let's get to the next call. And I think for us, that's been an advantage over this year compared to last, where we've seen some improvement is, like if a call is working, just keep calling it, right? And make other people adjust to it. So I think our kids they know that when, hey, if something's humming and something's working, let's stay with it. Let's not try and just reinvent the wheel or get into a call that we don't need to. Like if we have 9 calls on the sheet and we only call 3 of them and you end up winning a game, like at the end of the day, who the heck cares, right?
Yeah, good stuff. Brady, like I said, it's great to catch up with you. Congratulations again to you and your staff on being named our D3 Defensive Coordinator of the Week. And best of luck to you and the Blue Golds the rest of the way here in 2024.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Keith.
Meaningless stuff. Why do we gift so much meaningless stuff? Tired of generic gifts and hollow trends? Shutterfly allows you to create meaningful photo gifts for your family and friends. Whether it's a cozy fleece blanket for grandma, a stunning canvas print for mom, or a mug to make dad smile. Enjoy 40% off with code MAKE40 at Shutterfly.com and make something meaningful this year. See site for more details.
Logan, that takes us to our final recognition for the week, and that's to our D3 head coach and staff of the week. Tell us about our winners this week.
Well, for offense and defense, we had a couple staffs that are outside of the top 25s right now, but the head coach and coaching staff of the week is on a team that's pretty firmly within the top 25. It goes to Hardin-Simmons, who won 44-21 against their rival, Mary Hardin-Baylor. This was their second consecutive win against the Crew, and they led at the end of the third quarter 44-0. They averaged 14 yards per pass attempt, which is twice as much as Mary Hardin-Baylor has allowed on the season. And they really won, the middle quarter of the game. At the end of the second quarter, the middle of the third quarter, they scored on 4 straight drives, and that's really what put the game away. But also the defense played outstanding. In the first half, Mary Hardin-Baylor dropped back to pass 14 times, and they only registered 1 completion in that first half. And through the first 3 quarters, Hardin-Simmons only allowed 242 yards. So this game was over by the end of the third quarter before Mary Hardin-Baylor got a couple garbage time touchdowns at the end of the game. And Hardin-Simmons just completely dominated the first 3 quarters of this game, and that earned them our coaching staff of the week.
Let's talk to head coach Jesse Burleson on their efforts this week as our D3 head coach and staff of the week. We're talking to our head coach and leader of our head coach and staff of the week, Jesse Burleson, head coach at Hardin-Simmons University. Coach, first of all, congratulations on being recognized as our D3 head coach and staff of the week, and I appreciate you taking the time with us.
Absolutely, man. It's truly an honor. Anytime that I think that the recognition comes, it should not be to me. It should be to our staff and our players, because all I do is just try to steer the ship in the right direction. They're the ones that really make this thing go. But very, very honored to have this opportunity, and very thankful for it as well.
Coach, you guys obviously play a very competitive schedule, always competing with some teams that are in the top 25, competing for playoff spots, all those kinds of things. And as we get to this part of the season, one of the things that allows us to keep getting better is that we do a good job with evaluation. And I know for you, constant evaluation is a big part of how you guys continue to approach the season and move through, especially as we get into the second half of the season here.
Oh, man, that is probably one of the biggest topics that we talk about as a staff, and we try to always come up with different things that we can do. When you say constant evaluation, it's such a broad topic for any football team, any football program, any coaching staff, that you have to pare those things down a little bit to make sure that you're looking at the right things, because if not, you can get lost and there's so many things that you have to take care of. And so we try to do that as a staff, and we try to do that day in and day out, week in and week out. And I think that is one of the things that allows us to be consistently good, also to evolve as the season goes on. One thing we definitely never want to do is peak too early. And I think that's probably the most exciting thing about this team that we have right now, is I think that we're not even close to how good we can be. I think we're literally continually getting better week after week, but I think a lot of that is in how us as a staff approach that evaluation process.
You mentioned not getting lost in some of the information that you could get, and seen it over the last few years, just the boom in the data, the analytics, the things that we're able to dig into. So it is a process of figuring out, hey, there is all this stuff out here. What's our filter for the things that we're really going to focus on? So as all of this data has come to the forefront and you have more that you can look at, how do you guys filter that out to determine what's the most important things that we do evaluate to continuing our improvement?
Oh, man, that's a tough one to do. So kind of how we do it is we look, our number one priority is taking great care of our players. It always has been. And I know that sounds really simple whenever you say it, but more importantly, but that's really what we try to do. And in order to do that, we really have to look at what is best for our guys. And that is, we're going to look a ton at practice schedules, making sure that we're getting our guys enough, but not too much. And that can vary. Usually, what I used to do as a young head coach was I just pared it down as we went through different weeks in the season. But now we literally look at it day to day. We feel like, hey, we need to back off, or hey, we need to add some things on. We need to do some extra, conditioning here and there, different things like that. We literally take it day by day. And that puts a little more work on us as coaches, but that's okay, because that is taking great care of our players. And so listen to our strength and conditioning coaches a lot, because they are the experts in that field. And so they are able to give me and our staff some insight on maybe some things that we need to look at, because I really think that as we've gotten to the end of the past couple of seasons, that we've been banged up. I'll be 100% honest with you. We go into the playoffs last year and we're down 3 starting offensive linemen, and we're just beat up everywhere. And so that was one of the things that we researched this offseason, and we've definitely changed some things in terms of what we do practice schedule-wise and also recovery-wise. We have an entire recovery routine for our guys. And so our strength and conditioning coach, James Burke, does an absolutely phenomenal job of developing a menu for our guys. It's not like they just go in there and they do the same thing every day that every guy's doing it. They have a menu depending on what their needs are. So if it's a shoulder issue or an ankle issue or anything that they may have going on, they can choose from this menu, and it's specific things for those guys to do every single day. And that has really helped us to be able to stay healthy to this point and continue to get stronger in the weight room. And then I think it's producing on the field as well.
Yeah, I love that customized, individualized approach for these guys to be able to do those kinds of things, because you're right. Every single player faces some different issues. You mentioned relying on especially the strength staff to give you guys the feedback that you need to figure out what you're going to do in practice. We hadn't talked about this before, so just wondering, is there technology that they use for this? Not that it's necessary. I think all of this can be done without technology, but obviously there's a lot of things out there now that do give us insight. How do you guys go about that?
Yeah, my technology piece is James Burke. He's one of the smartest coaches I've ever been around, so he can rattle off some stuff that just flies right over my head because I'm just a dumb old football coach. But it's the stuff that makes sense when you look at it in terms of course, everybody does the cold tubs and the ice baths and those things, but we're doing a lot more with doing some RPR stuff that's pretty, I don't know if it's revolutionary. It's brand new to me, and so it's just some things for our guys. a lot of banded work, using Theraguns and compression sleeves and those kinds of things to take care of them so they can literally rotate through stations and hit each one of those things daily. And it's always available to them whenever they're not in class or not working or practicing, which is not much time when it comes to our guys, because the majority of our guys are in class most of the day, and then we're practicing, and then they have jobs too, because they got to live how the D3 life is. And so our guys do a great job with that, but they are prioritizing it, and we're able to squeeze those things in as well.
So you mentioned in your early days just starting to cut back, and I think that's what we all have grown accustomed to do is we're getting later in the season, let's cut these periods here, or let's shorten these periods. But now getting that input, getting that feedback back, you can make some better decisions. So when Burke's giving you that information, how are you using it then with your staff to determine what is our practice format for today or for this week?
Well, I think the biggest thing is my staff they're absolutely phenomenal. I wish I could give all their good attributes and all the accolades that they deserve, but we would have to have a whole show just for that, because I definitely feel like I have the best staff in America. I feel like I'm surrounded by unbelievable coaches, but even better people, which is what exactly we want here at Hardin-Simmons. And so we kind of go through and I give my guys a lot of autonomy. There is some things that we are going to do as a program and as a team, but when it comes to the positions, what I tell each of those guys is, hey, you're the head coach of your position. And so if you're coaching linebackers, you're the head coach of the linebackers. And I expect you to do your job and to know what those guys need and what they don't need. And I think my guys would tell you, I'm not a micromanager. I'm not going to be looking over their shoulder with everything that they do. And as long as we produce and our guys are continuing to get better, man, I'm 100% okay with that. So I think that's probably one of the things that's probably different too, is yes, we're going to have a structure of what we do, but each coach is going to have the ability and I guess power, if you want to call it, to handle their position as they see fit, because they're going to know those individual guys and what exactly they need on that day. And so I trust them with everything that I have to be able to get that done. And so that's probably pretty unique. And I think the other thing is I do believe we are extremely efficient. That's a big thing for me is none of us ever have enough time. We don't have enough time for meetings or, I'm an O-line coach. That's my background. That's my deal with O-line coaches. We never have enough individual time. If we get 30 minutes, we need 35. If you get 20, you need 25. We never have enough. So we try to be very efficient with what we do. As a staff, we don't meet as a staff very often at all. Usually our staff meeting takes about 5 to 7 minutes a day. And I know that sounds crazy to some staffs, but my thing is if we're talking for more than that, then we're probably making it too complicated. And so we try to be efficient. I try to give those guys as much time as they need to get their job done during the day. We try to teach in meetings, and once we hit the field, we try to we are flying around from start to finish and try to be, like I said, as efficient as we can be with our coaches' time and more importantly with our kids' time, just to make sure they get everything that they need.
In being the head coach and empowering your guys to be the head coach of their position, the head coach of their units, you as the head coach have that responsibility of, hey, we have to play complementary football, which is a big reason you guys have been recognized this week. Logan's always looking for what teams did the best job across all phases of the game, and that's how we identify for this award. And obviously you guys are doing it well. So when you think of the evaluation piece of that and you looking at the overall picture as the head coach and making sure that things are complementing each other in the way you want to play ball, what types of things do you really look at?
I think this is probably going to sound odd to a lot of staffs possibly, but we, like offensively, I still coach the O-line like I mentioned, but we don't ever sit down as an offensive staff and watch film together. And I know that sounds crazy. We do it all individually because I want everybody's individual opinion. And we do the same thing defensively. Everybody is going to take a look at that, everything that we do individually, and then we come together and put together the best plan. And I know that whenever I was coaching high school ball, man, we would sit in there for hours and we'd watch the same thing, and it was just one opinion, and I felt like we were kind of banging our heads against the wall. So I said, whenever I get the opportunity to head this up, I'm going to do the exact opposite because I want everybody's input. And I think that's what we do. And then, like I said, I give my guys the autonomy, and once we put together the game plan, we'll adjust that thing throughout the week. It's not like once we throw it in on Tuesday morning, that's what we're going to do. I mean, it's constant evaluation of the game plan as well, because you know how it is as coaches, we draw some stuff up like, man, this is awesome. This is going to be the best play we ever run. You get out there and it looks like crap because you're thinking X's and O's, not Jimmy's and Joe's. And sometimes that becomes an issue. But I think our staff does a really good job of evaluating and being able to adapt the game plan as we go through the week as well.
Yeah, I think that's so important because those things do look good on Sunday afternoon or Monday morning when you're drawing it up on the board. And you can do two things with that when you put it in is you could go be stubborn and spend a whole bunch of reps on it and then honestly probably only call it 1 or 2 times a game, or you could say, hey, we've got better ways to spend our time, right? And I think I agree too that sitting in that same room, haven't been there, I mean, you get caught up a little bit in the group think. And I think that approach and getting everybody to give that opinion, one, it empowers your coaches. You brought them in for a reason. You brought them in because they can add a lot to this. And just the process of sitting together in a room sometimes takes that individual part out of it. So I agree with both of those things.
Yeah, well, and I think the other part of that is that it allows you to be, of course, you get different opinions, but it allows you to be much more efficient. If I'm Coach Whitehead's looking at what he's wanting the quarterbacks to be able to do, as the coordinator, he's looking at everything, but he can focus on that part first and then kind of look at the broader picture. So we're each able to do that. I mean, we can get through your evaluated game, you can do it in an hour and a half instead of sitting there for 3 hours. And so, again, it allows us to be more efficient with our time. And I think that you put all those different ideas together in a quicker amount of time, I think it's more beneficial and it's more enjoyable because we're not sitting here for 18 hours a day as coaches, which some of us will do, but it doesn't have to be like that. I think we can be better, and I want our guys to be able to have time to have real lives and be with their families and their kids and do those things, and that allows us to do that.
Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time, giving us some insight into how you evaluate things and keep that continuous improvement going within your program. Congratulations again to you and your staff on being recognized as our D3 head coach and staff of the week, and best of luck to you and the Cowboys the rest of the way.
I really appreciate it. And again, this is an honor, but I want to reemphasize that all the credit goes to our coaches and our players because I felt like we were at the best place in America to get an education and play college football at the Division III level, and we want to continue to get better each and every week.
The Hardin-Simmons Cowboys were the 2023 American Southwest Conference champions, and they celebrated their championship with signature championship rings. If you're looking for budget-friendly options, unmatched customer service, and the highest quality, be sure you contact Signature Championship Rings after you win the championship this year. The link to Signature Championship Rings is in the show notes. Logan, another great group of guys, excited for the insight that they share each week and ideas that can be used by our coaches and our listeners in season right now. And we're getting into that time of the year here in D3 football where we're really thinking about those conference championships and the automatic bids that go along with them. So still a lot to be played out here, but certainly some meaningful games coming up across the country.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, in some conferences where there's a lot of teams still vying for that conference title, there's big games happening every single week. So we talked about Washington and Jefferson. They've got a big game this week. There's 5 teams in that conference that are still having a good shot of winning that conference championship. The ASC, we talked about Hardin-Simmons. They've got to play a double round robin of everybody in their conference. So one win against Mary Hardin-Baylor isn't necessarily going to get the job done for Hardin-Simmons. And then the WEAC, the other conference that we highlighted this week, they've got 5 top 25 teams. There's always going to be a big game in that conference as well. So, a lot of exciting football to be played in D3.
Definitely. Part of how I spend my Saturday is always being on d3football.com, watching the scoreboard and, finding those games that are pretty tight, close going down the stretch, and then jumping into their video links. So always a great place to be at d3football.com. Excited to be honoring D3 football and giving them some recognition for what they do, as you and I talk about all the time. Some great coaches, some great players, and great games that we're going to see here the rest of the season. So thanks again for all your work, Logan.
Yep. Thank you, Keith. Look forward to talking to you next week.
Be sure to check out our partners, Vertical Raise, for your fundraising needs, modern football technology for analytics and in-game decision-making, and Signature Championship Rings when you win the championship this year. Links and information to all of our partners can be found in the description and on coachandcoordinator.com in our 10% toolkit. Follow us on X at Coach K Grabowski.